Breaking. This is not a rumor, not a theory, and not something that can be brushed off as imagination. This is about patterns, behavior, and emotional truth that keeps repeating no matter how hard some people try to deny it. At some point, denial stops being harmless and starts looking like refusal to accept what's right in front of everyone's eyes. Let's be very clear. The question is no longer who could Jungkook like. The real question is, how many times does Jungkook need to show who he chooses before people finally stop rewriting reality? For years, Taekookers have clung to the same narrative, recycling moments, stretching meanings, and forcing connections that simply don't exist on an emotional level. They rely on silence, distance, and ambiguity because that's all they have. But Jungkook doesn't live in ambiguity when it comes to Jimin. With Jimin, everything is obvious, natural, consistent. Watch Jungkook carefully when he's around Jimin. You don't need slow motion or dramatic music. You don't need captions telling you what to feel. Jungkook's body language speaks first. His shoulders relax, his eyes soften, his smile becomes instinctive, not controlled. He laughs freely, often before Jimin even finishes speaking. That kind of reaction doesn't come from obligation. It comes from genuine emotional comfort. And this is where reality starts to get uncomfortable for Taekookers. Jungkook does not behave this way with Taeyoung. Not in private moments, not behind-the-scenes clips, and not in unguarded situations. The contrast is impossible to ignore unless you actively choose to ignore it. People in love gravitate toward the person who makes them feel safe. Jungkook gravitates toward Jimin. When there's confusion, Jungkook looks for Jimin. When there's laughter, Jungkook shares it with Jimin. When there's silence, Jungkook is comfortable sitting in it with Jimin. These are not loud gestures, these are quiet truths. Taekookers love to say they don't need to show it, but that argument collapses when you realize Jungkook shows everything with Jimin without trying. The closeness isn't hidden, it's not calculated, it just exists. That's the difference between something real and something imagined. Look at how Jungkook mirrors Jimin's movements without thinking. Look at how he adjusts his tone when speaking to him. Look at how his attention locks in. This isn't fan service. Fan service requires awareness of the camera. Jungkook forgets the camera when he's with Jimin. That's the biggest tell of all. Now let's address the uncomfortable truth directly. Taeyoung is not needed in this emotional equation. That doesn't mean disrespect, it means relevance. Jungkook's emotional fulfillment does not come from Taeyoung. It never has. Jungkook does not seek Taeyoung for reassurance. He does not look for Taeyoung's reaction first. He does not soften his expression in Taeyoung's presence the way he does with Jimin. And this is where Taekookers get defensive, because if Taeyoung isn't needed in Jungkook's emotional world, the entire fantasy collapses. They try to insert Taeyoung into moments that clearly belong to Jimin. They rewrite scenes where Jungkook's focus is obvious. They create meaning out of absence because they cannot compete with presence. Jimin's presence in Jungkook's life is constant, grounding, and emotionally charged. Jungkook enjoys time with Jimin. You can see it in how he stays close, even when there's no reason to. You can hear it in his laughter, unfiltered and genuine. You can feel it in the energy shift when Jimin enters a room. Jungkook lights up, not subtly, visibly. Ask yourself this honestly. If Jungkook were hiding a relationship with Taeyoung, why does his happiness peak around Jimin? Why does his guard drop around Jimin? Why does his joy look effortless only with Jimin? People can fake smiles, they cannot fake comfort. Taekookers often accuse Jungkookers of reading too much, but what they call reading is simply observing patterns over time. Years of the same behavior, years of the same emotional alignment, years of Jungkook choosing Jimin in small, quiet, undeniable ways. This isn't about one moment, it's about accumulation. One moment can be accidental, hundreds of moments form truth. Jungkook doesn't just tolerate Jimin's closeness, he seeks it, he initiates it, he protects it. When Jimin is teased, Jungkook reacts. When Jimin is quiet, Jungkook notices. When Jimin laughs, Jungkook mirrors it. These are subconscious responses, the kind you cannot script. And here's where reality hits hardest. Jungkook has never shown longing for Taeyoung the way people claim. There is no emotional pull, no visible ache, no instinctive reach. What exists is friendship, history, and mutual respect. That's it. Everything else is projection. Taekookers rely on the idea of what if. Jungkook stands on this is happening. Jungkook's eyes do not lie. His body does not lie. His reactions do not lie. Only interpretations do. When Jungkook is with Jimin, he's present, fully. When he's with Taeyoung, he's neutral. That difference matters. Neutral is not hidden love. Neutral is simply neutral. Some people refuse to wake up because waking up means letting go of a fantasy they've invested years into. But denial doesn't change reality. It only delays acceptance. Jimin is Jungkook's emotional home. That's why Jungkook returns to him again and again. That's why their bond feels lived in, not performative. That's why even silence between them feels loud with meaning. You don't need confirmation statements. You don't need labels. You just need to watch without bias. Because at the end of the day, Jungkook is not confused. Jungkook is not torn. Jungkook is not hiding. Jungkook is simply living his truth in the only way he knows how, by choosing Jimin again and again, in ways that can't be faked, replaced, or erased. And that's the part no amount of edits, theories, or wishful thinking can undo. So let's bring this to the point everyone keeps circling around but refuses to land on. This isn't about hating Taeyoung. This isn't about disrespecting friendships. This is about acknowledging what actually is there versus what people desperately want to be there. Jungkook's emotional reality has been consistent for years, and that reality centers on Jimin. Jungkook doesn't look conflicted, he doesn't look confused, he doesn't look like someone hiding feelings for someone else. He looks settled when he's with Jimin. He looks happy in a way that doesn't need explanation. That kind of happiness doesn't come from imagination, edits, or fan theories. It comes from connection. Taekookum as a romantic narrative survives only because some fans refuse to let go. Not because Jungkook feeds it, not because his actions support it, but because fantasy is easier than acceptance. The problem is, fantasy collapses when faced with years of consistent behavior, and Jungkook's behavior has never wavered. He chooses Jimin emotionally, instinctively, and repeatedly. Jimin is not a placeholder. Jimin is not a third wheel. Jimin is the person Jungkook orbits around. That's why their bond feels natural, lived in, and deeply familiar. That's why Jungkook smiles differently, laughs more freely, and relaxes completely when Jimin is near. That's not coincidence. That's truth. At some point, the question stops being what if and becomes why are we still denying what we see? Because waking up doesn't mean losing something, it means aligning with reality. And reality shows Jungkook loving Jimin in ways that don't need labels to be understood. If you're a Jungkook supporter, don't let loud denial drown out quiet truth. Trust patterns, trust consistency. Trust what Jungkook himself shows, not what others project onto him. And now, it's your turn. If you see it too, speak up. Share this perspective. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let other fans know they're not crazy for noticing the same things again and again. Support content that's based on observation, not fantasy. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want more honest discussions that actually look at behavior, not delusion. And most importantly, stay grounded in reality, because the truth doesn't need defending, it just needs to be seen.